Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right, guys, it's Monday, June 29th, and it is 9:46 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. And what we have on tap for this evening are two videos, hopefully. And the first one will be getting us caught up with Q. So let's do that first. I do have some people to thank, but I will do that hopefully in the second video. I say hopefully because today, as I was eating, I started crunching on something hard and I thought, what is that? It's like I have stones in my mouth. And it was not the very, very back molar, but the one beside it. It just literally broke in half and I swallowed part of it. So, yeah, and it hurts too. So, yeah, I'm going to try and get in as fast as I can to get a dental appointment to get that seen about. I can't even imagine. I take good care of my teeth, so I can't imagine how that happened, but, well, it did. So, yeah, that's why I say hopefully I'll get to the second video because, yeah, that tooth hurts. Ow. So, all right, well, that's my woe, not yours. So let's get into the Q posts and get caught up with those. And then hopefully we will have plenty of time left over to get to the news. All right. Okay, so we are on drop 4535, and we are just picking up exactly from where I left off with the last Q video. So this says, this represents a clear and present danger to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. And this is from the 28th of June, which is yesterday. And it says a person's value, number one, vote, 2, monetary value, tax contribution, 3, why is free thought ridiculed, challenged, and threatened when a person is opposed to the mainstream narrative? Well, I think we all know that without me getting into specifics there. But we know, as far as the Democrats are concerned, our only value is as a vote and for the monetary value, how much tax we will contribute. So why is free thought ridiculed, challenged, and threatened when a person is opposed to the mainstream narrative? 2, remains fixed, degree allowable by economic recession, expansion. 1, remains a variable. So I think 2, monetary value, tax contribution. Q is saying, well, 2 remains fixed because the degree is allowable by economic recession or expansion. Number 1, this a person's value as a vote remains a variable because obviously you're not valuable to them if you're not voting for them. And number 1 is dependent on a controlled system of information and dissemination. What happens when 90% of the media is controlled, owned by 6 corporations? And of course we know that it is, and what happens is exactly what we're seeing. There is no real news anymore. Unless you are getting it from an alternative news source, you are not getting the real news. You are getting what they decide is important for you to see. And you are not getting anything that they deem is not necessary for you to see, or that might sway your opinion away from the acceptable narrative. And I think we are all well aware of that. So what happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? Well, of course, we know that that is exactly what's happening. 90% of the corporations are owned by 90% of the media is owned by 6 corporations, and those corporations are controlled by the Democrat Party. And hence we are getting purely the Democrat ideology and the narrative that they have deemed acceptable, and we are not getting any other narrative. And if you want to have a voice and you happen to have a different narrative, they will censor you and do whatever they can to shut you up and make you so you're not as much of an influence. And we see that happening on all the social media platforms. If you have a voice and if you have influence of any variety, shape, or form, they will censor you. What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? Well, they are, and we know that, and we're seeing what happens. What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? Well, we're there, and this isn't the first time that Q has written these things, and, we know that that's exactly right. It's not free anymore. It's not free at all. What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? Well, it doesn't become the news anymore, because by very definition, the news is supposed to be, and it was always taught to journalists that the news was something that you presented without bias. You are presenting something as if you are maybe an eyewitness. It's just like an eyewitness report. You're telling, okay, this is what I see, this is what happened. It's not about opinion. Now, sometimes, they have talking heads and so forth, and they go over their opinions, but traditionally, news was always cut and dried. This is what happened. Here is who's responsible. Whatever. Not anymore. So, what happens when the news simply becomes an extension arm of a political party? Well, that's exactly where we're at. That's why Q and I'm not sure if Trump has referred to them as this or not, but certainly Q has referred to them as the MS and the MS DNC, because the mainstream media is part of the DNC. It is the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. It is quite evident that that is the case. Conservative voices are mocked, and that's the least that happens to them. Generally, they're not allowed to be heard at all because they're censored. Now, fact becomes fiction. Well, yes, I think most of what we're seeing is a lot of fiction with a little bit of fact, just to make it palatable, because a lie is much easier to swallow if there's some truth in it. And so that's what we're seeing in the news. We're seeing a little bit of truth with a whole bunch of bias, and they tell us what to think because they don't think that we are able to think for ourselves, or at least they don't want us to be thinking for ourselves. Identity creation. How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? Well, that's where people like myself come in, and other people that are on YouTube and other social media streams. They take this news, they break it down, and for people that are not able to, because you're right, if you are working full time, you got to come home, you got to do your laundry, you got to get lunches ready for the kids the next day, or you've got laundry to do, you've got grocery shopping to do, you've got this and that, and your taxes to see to, and we're being buried in red tape. I mean, just living is so complicated right now. I mean, just everything. And no, people don't have time, because the little bit of time that they get when they're not working, they come home and they want to spend it with their kids or their spouse or their significant other, and they don't have time. They turn on the news, they're very tired, they just turn it on, and whatever's on, they allow it to just seep in there, and they don't have time or energy to question the narrative, and that's what's sad. But it isn't their fault. And I used to kind of be hard on people like that. I'd say, oh, they're just too lazy. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's that they're too lazy. They don't have time. They don't have the psychic energy. And by psychic, I mean the energy that, they would need to be able to really dig and find out the truth. They don't have that to invest, because what little time they have left over from working, they spend with their families, they spend on keeping the household running. So yeah. And that is by design. How does the average person who is under constant financial stress, by design, find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? Well, they keep us all tied up in these things, and because they don't want us to have time to really think about what is happening around us very much. Majority of people more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name. Absolutely. You know, if someone like myself, a no one, says something, well, that's not going to carry any weight compared to CNN, because everyone will say, oh, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's an idiot. I'll trust CNN. Of course. That's only human nature. That's the way we're built. Majority of people more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name. Do people, human psyche, tend to follow the majority mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned? Absolutely. And that's why cults work. Because cults work by convincing you that, look, we all believe this, but you don't. So there must be something wrong with you. And then you start thinking, yeah, you know, everybody believes this except me, so it's got to be me. It's human nature. And it says if mainstream is used for a reason, dominate trend in opinion, absolutely. And they call them TV programs for a reason. That is what they do. And everything you watch on TV, right down to the commercials, is indoctrinating you, brainwashing you. It's just a fact. If you look, every single thing you see on TV has an agenda of some sort or another. Why do mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords or catchphrases? Well, because they all get their news from the same source. Q has already told us it comes in a 4 a.m. drop, and all the news, it's just like a parrot. Doesn't matter what channel you turn on, you're going to get the same news with the same keywords and sometimes even the same phrases. Coordinated by who? Well, we know it's coordinated. We know that the CIA was involved. I'm not sure who else is involved or if that is still happening, but we learned about that very, very early on with Q. Outside entity providing instructions? Absolutely. Absolutely. There are no real journalists anymore. They're told what to say. Unless they're alternative, they're being told what to say. Do they count on the fact that people, human psyche, are more prone? Okay, I'm sorry, I already read that. Let me see where I am now here. Do they count the fact that people, human psyche, are more prone to believe something if it's heard over and over again by different trusted sources? Well, of course, the more times you hear something, the more times, or the more likely you are to believe it. If you repeat a lie enough times, people will begin to believe it and think that it is the truth. Do echo chamber tactics provide validation, credibility to the topic point being discussed? Threat to intellectual freedom? Well, absolutely, it's a threat to intellectual freedom. My gosh, you know, I know up here, I can't even talk about what I believe because I would be laughed at, ridiculed, and mocked. Really, people believe what they're hearing, and they believe what they're hearing over and over again. And if you try to present them with something different, they'll say, look, you want me to believe you over all these other sources? I'm sorry, I just hit and then when you say, well, all those media sources are owned by 6 corporations. Oh, sure, yeah, okay, you're some conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a conspiracy factualist. That's what I am. All right, so would control over these institution organizations allow for the mass control of a population viewpoint regarding a design topic? Well, of course. And that's what's been going on for a very long time, at least since the 60s. Think Black Lives Matter push every 4 years. Well, of course it's pushed every 4 years. Why do you think? Elections, logical thinking. Why, after the election of 2016, did the Democrats and media corporations jumpstart a coordinated and planned divisive blitz intended to create falsehoods regarding illegitimacy of election, character assassination of POTUS through sexism, racism, every other kind of ism? How much of the population still believes POTUS colluded with Russia due to MSDNC 365 days or 365 days in the year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, media blitz, saying Russian collusion. And of course, they're starting to go back to that again because whenever something isn't successful, they just jump back to the last thing that might have been even mildly successful, and they go with that. No MSDNC reaction of POTUS Russian collusion narrative propaganda. Why? Pre-post 2016 election, why were violent masked terror organizations such as Antifa immediately created, funded, and allowed to operate within Democrat-controlled cities, safe zones? Well, why do you think? Because they point to this unrest and they say, well, welcome to Trump's America, when it has absolutely, positively nothing to do with Trump, nor will it ever. This is bought and paid for by the Democrat Party and George Soros, of course. And why were these organizations tasked with immediate intimidation, shutdown of any pro-POTUS rallies and or events? Well, for the same reason. And the other thing is, by having them show up, the media could point and say, well, look at the type of people that Trump is attracting, all these white supremacists, all these nationalists. That's, this is Trump's America. Of course, all that was planned. Why were marches immediately organized to counter and silence pro-POTUS rallies and or events? Why were marches immediately organized which divided people into sex, gender, race, ism? When you control the levers of news dissemination, you control the narrative. Absolutely. Control of the narrative equals power. When you are blind, what do you see? Nothing. They want you divided by religion, divided by race, divided by sex, divided by political affiliation, divided by class. When you are divided and angry and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible, not the controllers. No, and that's what they have us doing. They have us fighting each other when really the problem isn't with each other. It's really not. But they're making it about that. They're making it about sex and class and gender, and they're trying to turn the poor against the rich and the rich against the poor and the blacks against the whites and whites against black. And I mean, it's just division. Everywhere you turn, they are wanting to cause division. We're easier to conquer that way. When you are divided and angry and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible, the controllers. Divided, you are weak. Divided, you pose no threat to their control. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and or stable. To control the stable, like we are livestock, and that's how they view us. Absolutely, they view us as livestock. Livestock are kept. They're kept like sheep. They don't have to go out like, the wolves and the foxes and, the beasts of the field have to go out and they have to work for their food. But if you are in a stable, your food and everything else is provided for you. But they also determine what you eat, where you live, and when you're gonna die. So let's come down here. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable, the groupthink collective, and have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism. Empiricism meaning things that you can actually prove with scientific inquiry, rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. This represents a clear and present danger to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. Q. Now, I think all of that is pretty self-explanatory, and I've kind of, talked about it as we went through there. So let's go on to the next drop, and it is 4536 from the 28th of June, drop 4536. Q is a back channel to communicate directly to the people, bypassing the corrupt, controlled media. Now, these are all things that we know, but I do think that Q is, he reiterates this stuff quite often because there are always new people coming on board, and it helps to get them oriented and kind of entrenched in this as well, so that they understand what is happening. All right, well, let's go and look at this link that Q has provided us. All right, and this says part 7 featuring Eric Trump. Now, I haven't actually looked at this yet, so let's see. It says, who is ready for the Trump rally tonight? Now, that was on the 20th of June, 2018. And it's saying 2-year delta. Okay. And this is the 20th, 2018. And this is the 20th of June, 2018. Together. Okay, I'm not getting this. It says 6/20/2018 and 2020. Look for more direct confirmations. So I guess that is what we're supposed to be looking at, that we are to look for more direct confirmations. I think that this could be a little bit more clear, but hey, what do I know? All right. So, and beneath it, it says, if the news is untrustworthy, corrupt, controlled, and simply an extension or an arm of the Democrat Party, how do you circumvent it? Controlled lines of communication. Propaganda, well, that's exactly how they're communicating, through propaganda, but how do you circumvent that propaganda and get the message directly to the people? Well, you do it exactly as Q has been doing it. You have a back channel to communicate. In this case, it's been, well, it's 8kun now. It was 4chan, then 8chan, now it's 8kun. So if the news is I'm sorry, let's go down here. How do you communicate directly with the people? Back channels are important. Information warfare. Knowledge is power. And that is very true, because really, we would not be even thinking the way we're thinking. We would be completely confused if we did not have a back channel to understand what's happening. We would not, because all we would get then, the only thing that would bend our ear is the mainstream media, and we would be completely in the dark, just like everyone else. So it's Q that has told us where to look, where to dig, how to get this information, and has disseminated it to us. And he has done so using the Socratic method of asking questions. And when you ask questions, people have to search themselves for the answer, and it does help you learn that material much better. Okay, let's go forward here. And Lisa Mae Crowley says 6 corporations behind 90% of the mainstream media. They're to blame for much of the mess we're in. They represent a clear and present danger to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. Would be amazing if CEOs for 6 corporations were the first 6 indictments. Yes, that would be quite something. And SunQ2, Eric Trump posted the Q meme on his Instagram on this 2-year delta of Q 1578, as many of us pointed out last weekend. POTUS, his family, and his administration and U.S. military use 8kun and formerly 8chan as back channel to communicate with patriots. Q proofs set forth in this thread. All right, let's go forward now. We are now on drop 4537, COVID-19 wave 2, fear push will end right after the 2020 presidential election. Well, I think we all could agree with that. I think that it's quite clear that all of this will end after the election. That's what it's all about. And this, Q posted this from an old Q post from April 14th, 2020. When does NDA expire? Drudge report sale to foreign entity. Think 2020 presidential election +1. So I guess that would be November 4th, right? Because November 3rd is the election, I guess, if that is what he's saying. Removal blackout coming of pro-POTUS accounts. Well, look at that. That was back in April, and here we are now. There is a blackout for pro-POTUS accounts. It's being really heavily censored, especially in Twitter. I think Jack Dorsey's going to be in a world of hurt because he just has carried it way too far. When, by any means necessary, all assets will be deployed this election. Sleepers pro will shift position, nay. So the sleepers who are pro-Trump are going to shift position and become against Trump. Paul Ryan, Fox, Q. Then beneath that, Q says, when does COVID-19 to MSDNC fear push end? Think 2020 presidential election +1 Democratic Party death spiral. And I do believe that they are in their death spiral, and that's why they're so desperate. But I think that COVID's going to end too right after the election. You won't hear anything about it. You won't. All right. And Lisa Mae Crowley says, interesting that Q reposted this sleepers pro will shift position, nay. We were warned about this and I'm seeing it happen. They all eventually reveal themselves. Looks like we have to put up with this COVID-19 second wave BS until the 4th of November. Yeah, I'm a little sick of it, to tell you the truth, because they'll open something up here, then they'll close it down just as fast as they open it. It's ridiculous, all the hoops we have to jump through just to go into a store and shop, and they still don't have the churches open. It's okay to open everything else, including the malls, but churches must remain closed. But then this, this is Trudeau's country, so there you go. That answers that. Now, Sun Q2 says COVID panic will end November 4th, the day after the presidential election. Either way, Dems won't have any further use of pushing the panic to justify mail-in ballots and to sink the economy. That's right. All right, let's go on. My tooth is killing me. I know you really wanted to hear that. Okay. Now it's we are on drop 4538. 4538. Is China working on starting another virus pandemic? Oh, a big hearty yes. Yes, they are. Swine flu, G4, EA, H1N1. And let's go to the link here. And Q is asking us, another Chinese special delivery? Well, I love Chinese deliveries if they are Chinese food, but not so much liking the other type of deliveries they've been making. Just saying. Let's take a look at this. Flu virus with pandemic potential found in China. Oh, wow, what a surprise. Gee, that just took me totally off guard. Alrighty. A new strain of flu that has the potential to become a pandemic has been identified in China by scientists. It emerged recently and is carried by pigs, but can infect humans, they say. The researchers are concerned that it could mutate further so that it can spread easily from person to person and trigger a global outbreak. While it is not an immediate problem, they say it has all the hallmarks of being highly adapted to infect humans and needs close monitoring. As it's new, people could have little or no immunity to the virus. Gee, this just sounds like deja vu. The scientists write in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that measures to control the virus in pigs and the close monitoring of swine industry workers should be swiftly implemented. Pandemic threat, a bad new strain of influenza, is among the top disease threats that experts are watching for, even as the world attempts to bring an end to the current coronavirus pandemic. The last pandemic flu the world encountered, the swine flu outbreak of 2009 that began in Mexico, was less deadly than initially feared, largely because many older people had some immunity to it, probably because of its similarity to other flu viruses that had circulated years before. That virus, called H1N1 PDM09, is now covered by the annual flu vaccine to make sure people are protected. Yeah, sure it is. The new flu strain has been identified in China is similar to the 2009 swine flu, but with some new changes. Well, I'm sure that they have just designed it for the maximum efficiency of. That's an ugly bat. I don't care what anybody says. That's just one ugly bat. So far, it hasn't posed a big threat, but Professor Qin Chao Cheng and colleagues who have been studying it say it's one to keep an eye on. The virus, which the researchers call G4EA-H1N1, can grow and multiply in the cells that line in the human airways. Well, doesn't that sound familiar? They found evidence of recent infections starting in people who worked in abattoirs and the swine industry in China. Current flu vaccines do not appear to protect against it, although they could be adapted to do so if necessary. Yeah, no thanks. No thanks on any of the flu vaccines. I got the I've had a flu vaccine twice, and both times I got violently ill afterwards. I will never take another flu vaccine ever, and especially now with what I know about them. While this new, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm just saying for myself, I have declined and will continue to do so. While this new virus is not an immediate problem, we should not ignore it. Professor James Wood, head of the Department of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Cambridge, said the work comes as a salutary reminder that we are constantly at risk of new emergence of pathogens, well, especially right before elections. That's when pathogens tend to appear. I'm just saying. So we really do need to be careful before elections of the emergence of these pathogens. And that farmed animals with which humans have greater contact with than wildlife may act as a source for important pandemic viruses. Okay, well, I've had enough of that, which is good because it's done. All right, let's go back here. And another Chinese special delivery? I'm afraid so. I'm afraid so. I mean, if COVID isn't working, don't you think they're going to come up with something else? So I guess we'll see how bad this whole second wave is. And of course, you know that they are fudging numbers. But I guess if that isn't working, they'll have to break out this new one. Okay, and Lisa Mae Crowley says, great, just what they ordered, another pandemic. What are we doing to stop them? The researchers are concerned that it could mutate further so that it can spread easily from person to person and trigger a global outbreak. And the hits keep coming. Another fake DOD resist a-hole whistleblower coming. Schiff going to push for impeachment too over fake Russia-Taliban boundaries. Who are the foreign puppet masters? Soros is a U.S. citizen. Who does he take his orders from? And I'm sure he is taking his orders from someone. No doubt about that. Yeah, Schiff is on the warpath again. I mean, that man, oh my gosh. I guess he doesn't realize that he's a laughingstock, or he doesn't care. And Sun Q2 says, all right, at some point we have to declare war on China. How long will we allow the Chinese to wage war and silently kill thousands, even hundreds of thousands of our citizens? I realize we need to win 2020 election and try to avoid World War III, but at what point do we say no more to China? I realize they are working with the deep state to weaken and kill us, but this is out of control. Yes, it is. All right. And we are moving down to the next drop from today, the 29th of June. So here we go. We have a link, and I've clipped it out for us. Representative Jim Jordan, the same people who broke the Russia hoax story now expect us to believe they're reporting on President Trump ignoring boundaries on American troops. Don't think so. Yeah. And it says here, DOD whistleblower coming. Schiff investigation, hearing coming, and he's asking that as a question, but it is indeed a fact. Yeah. Win by any means necessary, all assets deployed, live or die, Democrat Party, foreign puppet masters, string pullers, death spiral. Q. Well, isn't that what we all want to hear? Death spiral. And this is drop 4540. The news is fake. The insurgency is real. Well, that is true. That is so very, very true. And I think it's quite self-explanatory. And we are here now on drop 4541 from today. And we have seen this already, but I will read it again. This is a letter, June 7th, 2020, Holy Trinity Sunday, Mr. President. In recent months, we have been witnessing the formation of two opposing sides that I would call biblical, the children of light and the children of darkness. Now, when I come to you guys to bring you the stuff that I have to bring you, that's going to play into it, the children of light and the children of darkness, and in a totally different light. All right, so anyway, we will just continue on with this for now. The children of light constitute the most conspicuous part of humanity, while the children of darkness represent an absolute minority, and yet the former are the object of some sort of discrimination which places them in a situation of moral inferiority with respect to their adversaries, who often hold strategic positions in government, in politics, in the economy, and in the media. In an apparent, inexplicable way, the good are held hostage by the wicked and by those who help them, either out of self-interest or fearfulness. These two sides, which have a biblical nature, follow the clear separation between the offspring of the woman and the offspring of the serpent. On the one hand, there are those who, although they have 1,000 defects and weaknesses, are motivated by the desire to do good, to be honest, to raise a family, to engage in work, to give prosperity to their homeland, to help the needy, and, in obedience to the law of God, to merit the kingdom of heaven. On the other hand, there are those who serve themselves, who do not hold any moral principles, who want to demolish the family and the nation, exploit workers to make themselves unduly wealthy, foment internal divisions and wars, and accumulate power and money. For them, the fallacious illusion of temporal well-being will one day, if they do not repent, yield to the terrible fate that awaits them, far from God, in eternal damnation. We will also discover that the riots in these days were provoked by those who, seeing that the virus is inevitably fading and that the social alarm of the pandemic is waning, necessarily have had to provoke civil disturbances because they would be followed by repression which, although legitimate, could be condemned as an unjustified aggression against the population. The same thing is also happening in Europe in perfect synchronicity, or in perfect synchrony. It is quite clear that the use of street protests is instrumental to the purposes of those who would like to see someone elected in the upcoming presidential elections who embodies the goal of the deep state and who expresses those goals faithfully and with conviction. It will not be surprising if, in a few months, we learn once again that hidden behind these acts of vandalism and violence, there are those who hope to profit from the dissolution of the social order so as to build a world without freedom. Solve et coagula, as the Masonic adage teaches. Although it may seem disconcerting, the opposing alignments I have described are also found in religious circles. There are faithful shepherds who care for the flock of Christ, but there are also mercenary infidels who seek to scatter the flock and hand the sheep over to be devoured by ravenous wolves. It is not surprising that these mercenaries are allies of the children of darkness and hate the children of light. Just as there is a deep state, there is also a deep church that betrays its duties and forswears its proper commitments before God. Thus, the inevitable enemy whose good rulers fight against the invisible enemy whom good rulers fight against in public affairs is also fought against by good shepherds in the ecclesiastical sphere. It is a spiritual battle which I have spoke about in my recent appeal, which was published on May 8th. In society, Mr. President, those two opposing realities coexist as eternal enemies, just as God and Satan are eternal enemies. And it appears that the children of darkness, whom we may easily identify with the deep state, which you wisely oppose, and which is fiercely waging war against you in these days, have decided to show their cards, so to speak, by now revealing their plans. They seem to be so certain of already having everything under control that they have laid aside that circumspection that until now had that until now had at least partially concealed their true intentions. The investigations already underway will reveal the true responsibility of those who managed the COVID emergency, not only in the area of healthcare, but also in politics, the economy, and the media. We will probably find that in the colossal operation of social engineering, there are people who have decided the fate of humanity, arrogating to themselves the right to act against the will of citizens and their representatives in the governments of nations. And of course, that is from the bishop. I can't remember his name, but that is what, and we are now on to the second part of that. And again, from today, for the first time, the United States has in you a president who courageously defends the right to life, who is not ashamed to denounce the persecution of Christians throughout the world, who speaks of Jesus Christ and the right of citizens to freedom of worship. Your participation in the March for Life, and more recently, your proclamation of the month of April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month, are actions that confirm which side you wish to fight on. And I dare to believe that both of us are on the same side in this battle, albeit with different weapons. For this reason, I believe that the attack to which you were subjected after your visit to the National Shrine of St. John Paul II is part of the orchestrated media narrative which seeks not to fight racism and bring social order, but to aggravate dispositions, not to bring justice, but to legitimize violence and crime, not to serve the truth, but to favor one political faction. And it is disconcerting that there are bishops, such as those who I recently denounced, who, by their words, prove that they are aligned on the opposite side. They are subservient to the deep state, to globalism, to aligned thought, to the New World Order, which they invoke ever more frequently in the name of a universal brotherhood which has nothing Christian about it, but which invokes the Masonic ideals of those who want to dominate the world by driving God out of the courts, out of schools, out of families, and perhaps even out of churches. The American people are mature and have now understood how much the mainstream media does not want to spread the truth, but seeks to silence the purposes of their masters. However, it is important that the good, who are the majority, wake up from their sluggishness and do not accept being deceived by a minority of dishonest people with unfavorable purposes. It is necessary that the good, the children of light, come together and make their voices heard. What more effective way is there to do this, Mr. President, than by prayer, asking the Lord to protect you, the United States, and all of humanity from this enormous attack of the enemy? Before the power of prayer, the deception of the children of darkness will collapse, their plots will be revealed, their betrayal will be shown, their frightening power will end in nothing, brought to light and exposed for what it is, an infernal deception. Mr. President, my prayer is constantly turned to the beloved American nation, where I had the privilege and honor of being sent by Pope Benedict the 16th as apostolic nuncio in this dramatic and decisive hour for all of humanity. I'm praying for you and also for all those who are at your side in the government of the United States. I trust that the American people are united with me and you in prayer to Almighty God. United against the invisible enemy of all humanity, I bless you and the First Lady, the beloved American nation, and all men and women of goodwill. And that is by Carlo Maria Vigano, titular Archbishop of Alpiana, former Apostolic Nuncio to the United States of America. And of course, I am not Catholic, so I don't really understand all those titles, but there it is. And we have read that before. So because Q, that's not the first time that Q has linked to that. So we have looked at that before, and we just looked at it again. And that brings us to the end of the Q post, but I am going to, just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to go out here and see if we truly are caught up. All right, and we're not. There has been one additional post, so I will read that to you now because I'm quite sure you want to hear it. And then we will be completely caught up unless Q posts again in the next hour and a half, which you never know. And if he does, I will bring that to you tomorrow. All right, this is the last Q post, drop 4543. Loyalists critical, defend and protect at all costs. Loyalists critical, a counterattack to the first law and order strike, prepared and ready in an effort to change the narrative, prevent blind mass public awareness regarding coordinated effort to remove sitting U.S. President, covertly disrupt the chain of command, regional communication as needed, media plans to disregard regarding label as political attack, the AG election interference, and inject script. Some commanding officers, executive orders may provide classified 1 to 99 that do not reflect those 1 to 99 of the POTUS or the AG of the United States. Appropriate action should be taken. Remember your oath. Remember your mission. Infiltration, not invasion. Defend and protect at all costs. So he's saying a counterattack to the first, the law and order strike, is prepared and ready in an effort to change the narrative and prevent the public, the mass public, from becoming aware of the effort, the coordinated effort to remove a sitting president. So he's telling us this in advance, and they wanted to covertly disrupt the chain of command and regional communication as needed. Now the media is planning to disregard this and regarding labeling it as a political attack, AG election interference, and inject their own script. Some commanding officers, executive orders may provide classified 1 to 99 that do not reflect those 1 to 99 of the POTUS or the AG of the United States. So we can be looking, well, not that we're looking forward to that, but Q is telling us that it will be coming. So that is, that's it for Q. We are completely caught up with Q. Now, in case I don't come back, because I'll tell you, my tooth is killing me. I'm hoping to get in tomorrow to get it fixed. Well, I'm really hoping to get in tomorrow to get it fixed. If not, well, I'll still be here. So anyway, let me just, I'm going to do this just in case for some reason I don't come back with a second video, because today, well, I won't get into all that, but let's just, I do want to thank the following people. I think this is extremely important, and I appreciate it, especially during this time, because of course there are so many that can't, you know, contribute in any way, and that is fine. I always want them to feel welcome here, but I do appreciate those that can and do support the channel. I really appreciate that very, very much, and I'm sure the other people that are not able to contribute appreciate it as well. So thank you very much. The following donated via coffee. Orange Peel, that's an interesting name. I'd like to know where that name came from. Orange Peel. I hope it's not doesn't have anything to do with your thighs, because when I think of orange peel, I think of cellulite. I'm a woman. And Grandma Patriot, I love that name. Valentina and Alleycat 61218. Also, I received something via snail mail, which is always fun for me. Thank you, Jacqueline A. I don't want to say her last name, but she sent a lovely card and note and donation. And thank you so much, Jacqueline. I think you were inquiring if I had got it, and indeed I did today. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'm going to sign off for this video. I may be back. If I can get my tooth calmed down, I'm going to take a Tylenol. And if I can get my tooth calmed down, I will be back with the news, because I've got probably 2 videos prepared with news. But of course, I wouldn't bring both of them tonight. But anyway, all right, guys. Well, that's it. You guys have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth. Please keep seeking truth and pay attention. There's a lot going on, and I do believe that there is some things planned for, if not July 4th, then July 5th. So just keep your eyes and ears open, pay attention, stay alert. And if you see something, say something. All right. Thanks, guys. Good night.